All righty, it is time to preview the San Francisco Giants with a radio Hall of Famer, a Bay Area radio Hall of Famer. A's fans, you know all his great work for all these years, being around the A's broadcast, now what he does with the San Francisco Giants. When you think about a baseball historian, when you think about somebody that knows the game, whether it's the big league level down to the minor league level, his work about the PCL has been absolutely incredible. There is nobody like the great Marty Lurie, and he joins us here on A's Cast Live. How are you down there in the Valley of the Sun?
He has his mic muted. Let him know.
How do I let him know?
Just tell him to mute his mic.
You're muted.
How about that? Better?
There you go. How are you, my friend?
Very good. I'm the only guy who can tell you who played shortstop next to your grandfather in 1948. So you know that.
Fact.
Alvin Dark, Rookie of the Year.
I said before you were here, I said, Marty has sent me so much stuff about my grandfather that I've passed on to my brother and my cousin. The baseball history has been something for you. It's been a passion. The way I think you see with people who are like professors in college of history, and whether you love World War I or it's World War II or whatever thing in history that you love, certain cultures, that for you has been like baseball. Like if there was a baseball class to teach, you could roll right in and do baseball history at any university.
Yeah, it's beautiful because that's what baseball is all about. It's generational. It builds on the shoulders of the first generation, the second, the third, the fourth. And that's what connects us. And it's like a religion. We love the stories. And it's an unconditional friend. It's always there when we need it. And it's going to show up in March. And we're going to have this story that'll take us right through the end of October, November.
And baseball has always been changing. We're going to change a lot with these new rules. But when you think about all the different decades of baseball, if you had to say which one was actually, I'm not going to say the best played, but the most entertaining, which decade of baseball, in your opinion, was the most entertaining?
The 60s. I think the 60s are unbelievable. The American League finally was sort of catching up with African-American players and players of color. And the National League, of course, had done that well in advance of the American League. But when you look at the players who played in the 60s, I think that was the toughest decade of Major League Baseball that we had ever seen because it was such a difference than the 50s. The 60s, the stars really came out. The Hall of Famers really came out. So I'd say the 60s for me.
Well, and you know, I try and tell people all the time, Marty, that baseball has changed so much. Like back in the day, you had a commissioner, but like truly the two leagues were different. The umpires were different. They both had their own presidents. I mean, you had two, they were different from each other. Like now, like you try and think like football, basketball, baseball, everybody plays everybody. But back in the day, these two leagues, the National League and the American League, were truly separate and different. It's wild.
Well, they had a real rivalry. It was a big deal to win the All-Star game. The league presidents would come in and make a speech before the All-Star game. If you listen to an All-Star game in 1958, for instance, it's 4-3 American League. It's the 8th inning, and Mantle is still in the game. Mays is still in the game. Musial's in the game. Banks is in the game. That's the way the All-Star game was played in those days. But you bring up a good point about the umpires. The American League umpires had the balloon chest protector, the outside chest protector, so they couldn't get down and see the low pitches well. So the American League was known as a high pitch, high strike league, and the National League was known as a low strike league. So that was different at that point as well. But we had different league presidents, different umpires, and different ballparks. And the whole thing was different. Spring training, you may see some teams play each other. But when that World Series came around, you had never seen the team play the other team before. And it really was, how the heck are the A's going to match up with the Dodgers? How are they going to match up with the Giants? You only had spring training to go by. And that made the World Series really special.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, we start thinking about it, the legendary matchups and the legendary players, they would only face each other one time. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about the great Hank Aaron going up against the New York Yankees. Hank Aaron didn't have a lot of postseason, but when he did, he hammered the Yankees. It's those special moments. But I do like that. I do like that all the kids and everybody now, you get to see everybody. I remember I mean, think about this, Marty. I had never seen the Yankees with my own eyes until I came to play baseball at San Jose State. My first game ever was A's Yankees at the Coliseum. It was the first time I'd ever seen the New York Yankees, and I was what, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, we are very, very, very lucky to be in the Bay Area with a two-team market. The fact that we can see the American League, see National League, but now with the new schedule, we're going to see everybody, and that's okay. I have no problem with it. I think baseball is universal. It does make it interesting to every other year. You're going to get a home game with the Yankees or with the Orioles, or a team that's really coming on. We still have the rivalry between the A's and the Giants. We'll have 4 games with them this year. But the fact that we're going to play everybody in the other leagues, 7 home, 7 away, 3-game series, I think it's terrific. I really look forward to it.
As a baseball historian, I remember a few years ago, we were doing an interview with you, and you really educated us when people are talking about, you can't change in baseball. And you were like, no, they've always changed in baseball. That baseball's always changing. So, yeah, we have new rules, we have new stuff going on, but our sport's always been doing that.
No, absolutely. They changed the ball, and they would never tell you. And then there was a point in time when they did tell you. In 1930, if you look at all the statistics of 1930, and the great A's teams of 29, 30, and 31, they used a ball that was like a golf ball. And Jimmy Fox just crushed the ball, and Al Simmons, and all these names of A's history. So the equipment has been different. It's changed over the years. The baseball has been different. The ballparks are different. And it's okay to change. They can do whatever they want, but you still need 27 outs. The last 3 outs are going to be the toughest, and you're still going to have to hit behind the runner to move a guy over when you're going to have to score a run. You're still going to have to throw ahead in the count. If you get behind in the count, the hitter's going to kill you. And the game, that part of the game is never going to change, but there are certain aspects of it that will change this year. And we'll see the pitch count, the pitch clock, rather, the way that works, the bases, the shift, and everything else. So it's going to look different to us. It's going to look a little bit on fast forward. But what I see in spring training down here, it's an experiment. And these players are so smart. I mean, the pitchers are already figuring out how to trick the hitters with the pitch clock. And the hitters are trying to figure out how to slow the pitcher down and step out of the box and do this and that. The base stealers are going to try to figure out when they can go. Baseball always adapts to the rules. And I frankly think, Chris, this is going to be the most interesting year we've ever seen in baseball, with the fact of the pitch clock and the way they're going to operate with it, and with not having the shift, and the bigger bases make a difference too. It's going to be quite interesting. This is going to be a very unique spring training, and I think what's ahead will be amazing.
Yeah, knowing guys that are good friends who really don't go to games much anymore have said, God, if I can get out of there 2 hours and 30 minutes on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I can actually go to the game and not worry about work tomorrow, or bring my kids to the game. So once it really gets out and we actually see regular season games, they're not going well over 3 hours. It's going to be a good advertisement for attendance, no question about it. And something that when you talk about the 60s and athleticism, I'm just excited, being a kid that grew up in the 80s, all the base stealers. I mean, when I was growing up, it's Ricky Henderson, it's Vince Coleman, it's Tim Raines. Everybody was stealing bags. Our buddy Bip Roberts, who I got to watch growing up. I can't wait, Marty, to see the base stealer back in the game.
Yeah, it's coming, and we'll see it. Well, they'll figure out, after the first pick off, will they go on the second one? There's going to be a lot of back picks. The catcher's going to be throwing to first base a lot to keep the runner close. But having bigger bases and the fact that you can run after they have thrown over twice, they got to get you or else it's a balk. That will be different. I think we're going to see many, many more stolen bases this year. Look, and Billy Beane figured this out back in 2000. I always remember him saying it. Say, well, why don't you run more? He says, well, you got to be successful 80% of the time to make it work statistically. And if these guys can get there 80% of the time, you're going to see a lot of people running. So that's something that we'll enjoy at the ballpark. But for the players, see, the fans are going to have fun. But the players, this is really a challenge because the pitcher is got to, you got to think about the pitch. You have to think about executing the pitch. You have to think about where you are in the rubber. You got to think about your breathing. And all this happens in 15 seconds. And all of a sudden, instead of thinking about all that at the end before you deliver it, you're looking and saying, uh-oh, I only got 4 seconds to go. And then the pitch is not as much of a quality pitch. Same thing with the hitter. The hitter gets in the box. He's got to be there at 8 seconds. Well, what if he stands there at 10 seconds? Now the pitcher on the mound says, all right, he's already taken one timeout. He can't step out. I'm going to hold the ball until 2 seconds. So now I've frozen him for 8 seconds or 10 seconds. It's an eternity. What they're going to do to the hitter. So the hitter's got to step out. If he's down 0-2, 1-2 in the count, he's got to step out and take his time out and regroup at that point. So there's so much going on. It does affect the players, and that's my concern, whether the quality of the game will be different because of the trying to speed up the game. For the fans, it's great. But for the players, they really have to adjust to this.
Let's read some names here, some notable free agent additions for the San Francisco Giants. Mitch Haniger, our old buddy Sean Manaea, Ross Stripling, Michael Conforto, who sat out all last year, but obviously had some big years with the Mets, Taylor Rogers, Luke Jackson. The whole Carlos Correa thing ended up looking bad. Giants went out, tried to spend big money. We were there at the winter meetings when they weren't able to land Aaron Judge, when supposedly they were. Then they pivoted to Correa. The x-rays didn't go the way they wanted. It was really ugly. But in the end, Farhan went out and got a lot of guys. And I just have the feeling that if these guys stay healthy and they're productive, I got a feeling that the Giants are going to be better than we think, Marty.
Well, they're definitely better than last year. There's no question. They had guys last year who did not have a high ceiling. What we've got this year are people that actually we're not sure what the ceiling is going to be. And if it's the right ceiling, they're going to go up in their abilities and their numbers. So there's no doubt in my mind that this is a better team than we saw last year. Last year, there were a lot of fill-in players. We don't have that this year. So defense is still a question on the corners. We'll see what happens there. But not getting Correa, they missed having an anchor guy at the number 3 spot. So we'll have to see what Conforto does, what Haniger does, what Flores does, Jock Peterson and people like that. They still platoon all the time, and they're a little rough on the corners defensively. Lamont Wade is another guy coming back. He looks terrific. He looks so healthy, and he looks terrific down here. In right field, you get Haniger or Conforto, as I say. Yastrzemski, Slater, who's got a bad elbow right now in center field. J.D. Davis and Flores on the corners. You've got first base. You have a Flores and Wade there. You got a VR who hit 35 homers between Sacramento and the Giants last year. Joey Bart has been challenged at catcher, and maybe it's working because he's crushing the ball down here. So we'll see how that turns out. But you brought up the pitching. And this is what's going on in baseball. Teams are going to 6 or 7 man rotations. 6 man for sure. We've seen 2 or 3 teams announce they're going to go with a 6-man rotation. The Giants have a 6-man rotation with Junis going to the bullpen. You know Junis from Kansas City. They've got a lot of depth in the starting pitching. Manaea went to Driveline for the whole winter, except for 2 weeks in Antarctica to see penguins. But his velocity has gone up, 2 or 3 miles. So he's very happy. Alex Wood, you got Logan Webb, you got Stripling. You've got people who can pitch here, and the bullpen is fairly deep. They've got a bunch lefties, righties. You got the two Rogers twins, who I don't know who I'm talking to when I see them. It's impossible to tell them apart. But one's a lefty, one's a righty. Duvall's a good closer. The Dodgers are a little banged up. They lost Lux. Their pitching now is a little different. Now they're relying on young players to make it. Before, they would just work them into the lineup, and if it worked, fine. Now these guys have got to make it. So the Dodgers, will see. The Padres are a team that the top of the lineup is fabulous, but they're going to need a six-man rotation in their starting staff. And Arizona's better. They're a young team coming on. They're better too. Are they going to contend? Probably not, but no one's going to push them around this year. And Colorado, I can't figure out. I don't know what's going on.
You mentioned ceiling, and I'm just kind of laughing. Last year at our training camp, there weren't too many guys that actually had a ceiling. That's kind of scary when you're at spring training and you don't even see a ceiling for guys.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that, if these guys stay healthy, then you don't have to go in and make 60 transactions. But if they don't stay healthy, again, the farm system at the top is not really ready to produce many people to take over. So you could fall into it. If they're not healthy, you could fall into that again. It's not impossible. But Kyle Harrison from De La Salle looks like a real deal. Good lefty arm, one of the best in baseball. He'll be in Sacramento. And the other one is this Casey Schmidt from your neck of the woods down in San Diego. He reminds me of Chavez a little bit. He reminds me of Eric playing third base. Not Chapman. I don't see Chapman, but I see a little more of Eric in there. The kid's going to develop. He swings the bat well. So Schmidt and Harrison are going to get to the big leagues this year. But other than that, there's not a lot ready. And that's my worry about the team. If they got to go into the minors, there's not a lot there. Not a lot. They got Piscotty here, by the way. And so Steven, who you know well, he's in camp too. And he's got a shot to make this team. If not, I hope he goes to Sacramento because he'll be in the big leagues this year.
Years ago it was a 4-man rotation. Now 5-man rotation. I mean, have we ever seen that work in the history of baseball where you're going to rely on 6 guys, 1 guy every 6 days?
Well, no. There used to be a guy, he would pitch every Sunday. Ted Lyons, the great Hall of Famer for the White Sox, that you knew he was going to pitch every Sunday. He was a Sunday pitcher. Certain pitchers would be held out by certain managers to pitch against better teams. We've seen that before, which upset the rotation. But I can never remember seeing a 6-man rotation that they are literally talking about doing. It's not just the Giants. The Padres are talking about it. There are other teams in baseball that are talking about it.
The Mets have talked about it now.
And how about the Dodgers? What are they going to do? They've got loads of pitchers. Syndergaard is there, Kershaw, May, Urias. They've got a lot of people to work into that rotation too.
I'm just wondering, 6 guys, there's 30 teams, 6 guys. Are there enough starters on planet Earth that are good enough to pitch at the big league level in a 6-man rotation?
No. Well, now you don't have to go 7 or 8 innings. So if you give me the DeSclafani and you tell me that Junis is coming in behind him, all right, so I can put DeSclafani in. Just give me 4 innings or 5 innings, and I'm coming back with Junis next. Here's Minaya. Just give me 5 innings. That's all I want from you. So just go as hard as you can for 5. And that's the way the game has evolved. And that's why you can use a 6th starter, because you're not saying, hey, give me 8 or 9 innings every turn. You just want him to give you enough innings to eat up that inning, that game, because you have to start 162 games. So the difference is you don't have to go 8 or 9 innings, so you can mess around with the rotation.
Haniger and Conforto. I love Mitch Haniger. I did that.
I can't remember ever seeing him play, so you tell me about him.
Yeah, when healthy, and I got to do the Santa Clara County baseball banquet, and we honored him and Jock. And Mitch Haniger's just the nicest guy, Marty. You're going to love him. It's just, can he stay healthy? And obviously, Conforto sat out all year long. But if those guys bring the thump, that could be the thump that the Giants are missing now that, they didn't end up with Judge or Correa.
Yeah, I agree. And, you got to have table setters at the top of the lineup to get on and do that. They look to me like a team built more on power and not speed. They're a little more station to station than I like. I like to see a little bit more speed, and then maybe the pitch clock and the bases and all that will help them run a little bit more, get a better jump. But to me, they look like they're relying more on power. And when they won 107 games a couple of years ago, they had 250 home runs. So I think they like that, the way Farhan has put the team together. It's a little older, and it's a little more stationary. And there's no Longoria is gone, Belt is gone. Of course, Posey is gone. It's a different kind of team now, but they do rely on power.
You've been around big league managers for a long time. You've studied big league managers. How's your relationship with Gabe Kapler, and how do you feel about him as a leader of a franchise?
He's grown up a lot. I'd say, and I said it on the air, he's almost done a 180 this spring. He sits and he talks and he's patient and he laughs and this and that. And of course, no games have happened yet. So let's see when the season starts. But so far, he's been a pleasure. And like he says, look, Chris, the way this organization is set up, he's not calling the shots. He's got 18 coaches. He's got an analytics department. Whatever happens in this team, it's a consensus opinion of the way they want to play. So they know ahead of time who to put in and where to put in and what pockets they're going to look for with certain batters. And he executes it well. But he's gotten a little more glib. I think he's going to relate better to the fans as opposed to talking over their heads all the time, with a lot of analytical mumbo jumbo. He's not Ken Maka, he's not Art Howe, he's not Bobby Cox, but he's not as stiff as he was in the past. So I think he's going to be better. I do.
Let's end on this. And I know Ray Fosse was trying to do this towards the end. God love our man, Ray Fosse. But you have done so many interviews. I mean, the amount of interviews you have done, are you preserving them? Is there ever going to be a place where we can get, I mention it all the time with you, your relationship with Torrey Hunter and the stuff that you would get out of Torrey Hunter, whether he was in Minnesota or he was in Anaheim. I mean, Torrey was just wonderful. You guys had a great, are we ever going to have this vault where we can go and just enjoy and geek out on all your great interviews?
Yeah. They are almost all of them are digitalized right now. A lot of the stuff I did, look, I did the A's pregame from 98 to 09. And Chris, I did it every single day, like you. You work so hard. I would do a 90-minute show every single day. And to do 90 minutes by myself, I would have to have 5 or 6 different interviews every single day. So a lot of the stuff I have is on CD. I have all the many of my pre-games from the A's with a lot of the CDs filled up with interviews. But then we also have the digital side of the ones that were on the recorder. And those have been put on the internet that we have them in a hard drive, which we'll never lose them. So it's on my mind, but there's so many on the day-to-day CDs that the stations would, prepare for me that someone's got to sit down. It'll take 2 years to listen to everything. Listen to Ken Korach and me rattle the lumber. Listen to me and Vinny, me and Shooty. Maka, Guerin, whoever it was. There's just so much stuff there. It's really the history of the A's from 98 to 09. It's really very complete.
Well, I don't need to tell everybody how great you are. You're a Bay Area Radio Hall of Famer. They already did that for me.
You're the hardest working guy in this business. And I tell you that. I look at what you do every day and how much you get done. It's absolutely incredible. You and Larry Krueger, you two guys are the hardest working guys in the Bay Area, and you're an icon. All I can say is when you call me, I'm coming on the show.
Wow, that's very kind, but we all know who you are, Marty. I mean, when you get your own bobblehead, for God's sakes, that is a big deal.
$79 on eBay.
That's when you're big league. Well, you know how much you mean to this fan base, how much you mean to me, and everything you've done for me in my career and helping me find information about my grandfather. I'll always be indebted. Be well, and we'll see you down there. I'll be down there about March 11th. We'll be back.
Good.
We were just there. We've come back. We'll be back again, but can't wait to see you, and be well, and stay warm in Arizona.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I will tell you this, being that I live in Arizona, some of the fans went, yes, I am Marty Lurie. That's me. Yeah. The fans are coming up to the booth already. I live here. So the fact that it's a little cooler, not a problem. Because believe me, in June and July and August, it's going to be 112. So I can put up with 58 right now. And believe me, it's a very, very hot place in the summer. So I'm going to be more in the Bay Area in the summer, believe me.
All right, buddy. We'll see you soon.
All right. Be well. Always a pleasure. I'll see you on the 17th. I think Giants A's over in Mesa. I'll probably see you on, I think, March 17th, something like that.
Beautiful. Take care.
Okay. Be well. Bye-bye.
The great Marty Lurie right here on A's Cast Live. Legend.